Billy Famous. How did you get Billy Famous anyway? This is Bill Schenck, by the way, we have on the RDO today.
Around 1980, we were always hanging around the front desk at Elaine Horwitz Gallery, and Rudy Fernandez and Julie Sassi, and I can't remember who else in the staff, and some of the artists just started coming up with nicknames. It started with Rudy calling me Billy Snake Lips. And then I thought,
that's not a very good one. I don't like that one at all.
And then there was Billy Snake, and then there was Saint Shanks. And finally, I got it twisted around to where, how about Billy Famous?
Yeah, you like that.
And I thought, this fits much, much better.
And so that was like early 80s?
Yeah, around 1980, 81. And actually, I had in mind that using the name Billy at all, there was this character who was a photographer that had lived for a while in the factory, in the bathroom. And
the factory being Andy Warhol.
Yeah, right. Sorry about that.
That's and we'll get to that part too, don't worry.
And I remember, reading some interview or whatever, somebody knocked on the door because somebody was always in the bathroom, and they opened the door.
Doing what, by the way?
Nothing, just living there.
Oh, I see.
And the guy answered, and he said, who are you? And there was just this big pause, and the guy said, Billy Name. And that was a photographer. He's still alive.
And his name, he went by Billy Name?
Yeah. I mean, he just didn't use his real name, and I like that. So I dropped his name and put Famous in its place and became Billy Famous.
You've done some books that have kind of put that on there, too, haven't you? At least one, I think, you had Billy Famous on there somewhere.
Yeah, I did. The chronology of my life when I was the associate book for the 2012 Schenk in the 21st Century.
So we just kind of jumped into it with Billy Famous, Billy Schenck. So I've got Billy Schenck here today. I've known Billy for 30 years, I think. Pretty close to it, yeah. So I knew him a lot longer, even before I started showing his work, because he's a great collector. He buys and sells occasionally. Now he just
You were still practicing medicine.
I was still, I think,
you were buying rugs and prehistoric pots and just other stuff.
Never prehistoric. I never did prehistoric.
In 88, 89?
Nope, just historics. I always liked historics. I left that to other people.
Okay.
Yep. I and the new pots. I always liked the new pots. I had a lot of Marias at that time, and all the name people, because I grew up in New Mexico and I knew all those ladies, so I would go and buy things from the potters. But so let's just wind this back past 30 years. Let's go back to say, how about where were you born? Because you're a Western kid, I know that, but you're not a Western kid.
Legend has it.
Yeah,
legend has it that I was born in Two Guns, Arizona.
Okay, well, we could leave it at that if you'd like.
Yeah, well, that's that's what the legend has.
Okay, and so you grew, but basically your whole life you felt like a Western kid.
I did, because I spent a lot of my summers growing up in Lander, Wyoming, and that was always where my heart was. It still is. It's just always been home.
Why Lander? How did you end up there?
I was living with my mother's brother, my uncle.
Okay.
He was a newspaper owner, and I used to call him the lone liberal voice of Wyoming.
And what age group was that you were living with your mother's brother?
Well, I think the first time my father was still alive, we were there in 52, 51. Somewhere around there.
So, and how old were you approximately then?
About 5. I turned 5 in Albuquerque.
Oh, okay.
I remember,
living there?
No, we were passing through, but I just remember we went from Albuquerque to Acoma.
What a funny memory.
Well, Acoma was really, that was a radical departure from anything I'd ever seen, because we literally climbed up, the rocks, and there were still, all these Acoma natives, wearing blankets. Yeah. And it was in August. My birthday is August 19th. And I thought, wow, this is America? This is like nothing I've ever seen. Yeah. And I can remember the vast skies, the clouds out there that just went to infinity.
Pretty unbelievable on top of that.
So that memory stuck with me. I mean, that was my first Southwestern memory. And then that same summer.
Did you guys buy any pots while you were up there? Did your dad or mom buy pots?
Not that trip.
Yeah.
No. But it was something similar to that is how we got started with prehistoric pottery.
So you're 5, you're going to do that. What did your dad do? What did your dad and mom do?
Well, my father had just kind of started in construction business. The first suburbs after World War II were being built, and he was in the middle of that. around 1947,
was
48.
he just building, or was he also investing and doing the whole kind of?
I don't know, because he died just as he was breaking even.
Oh, wow. How old were you when he passed away?
Not quite 6.
Oh, so that was super traumatic.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that must have changed your whole world.
Well, yeah, since I witnessed him being killed, yes.
Oh, my gosh. That's unbelievable. Well, we can talk about it, or we don't have to. It depends how deep you want to go, Bill.
We could spend hours here with that. But no, it did alter my universe. It altered the way I perceived the world. There's no way it couldn't.
Yeah. And life, probably, too.
Yeah.
And so that stays with you, I would assume.
Yep.
And so so he passes away, you're 6. Your guys are out in Lander or Wyoming at that
then when I
time?
started coming back to Lander, I think when I was around 7 and 8, and all through my grade school years, freshman, sophomore, junior years of high school, even as I was in art school at Kansas City, I would come back out.
And was your mom, did she stay single, or did she get married again?
No, she remarried. This is something that I actually have not made public in any of my books or anything. But when I was 7, she married a guy who was a TV cowboy star. I mean, and this was in Ohio at the time. He had the most popular TV show in the entire state, and it was at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so all the kids would come home.
Yeah.
And he, what do you call it, emceed for the Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, and Hopalong Cassidy.
Right, so
films.
he would kind of come in and talk about them before the
and they
TV
had
shows would come in.
A TV set, and it was like a log cabin, and he had the whole regalia of what do you call it, the pinstriping or shirts, and twin Colt 45 pro handled.
Yeah.
He had a white horse and all that stuff. So that kind of, I guess, really did have an impact on me.
Oh, sure.
And I've never admitted that because he was such a monster of a human being.
Yeah.
So those were 10 really dark years for me. But the irony is I kept coming back to that Western image that he had planted in my brain.
And so you're about 7 when she marries, and he stays. He's in your life until you're 17.
Yeah.
Until you can escape the house, basically.
Yep. That's what I did. I broke the family up.
Yeah.
I left home at the end of my junior year, and was headed back out to Wyoming to live with my mother's brother. And I just made an ultimatum. It's either him or me. Adios.
Yeah.
And I didn't wait for an answer. I left.
Yeah. There was some anger there.
Yeah.
There was definitely anger. Were you making art yet at that time?
Yeah, I was just beginning to. I'd always drawn from the time I was a little kid, since before I could remember. And again, the irony during grade school was my teachers naively thought I was making notes and paying attention. And I had my notebook open, and all I was doing was doodling and drawing and wasn't paying attention to anything they were teaching at all. Then I got serious about making art when I was 16. And
what clicked that, do you think?
I don't know. I was in high school, of course, and there was this woman who taught art classes, and prior to that, it was never brought up in my house or even considered, but I thought I would try doing that. I had ulterior motives. I didn't have even a C average in high school, and I was afraid of not graduating. And beyond that, I thought, how am I ever going to get accepted to a college? So I thought, I'll get an art class. I know I can ace this.
Yeah.
So I did, and I was immediately drawn to, learning how to draw formally. I mean, for real. I mean, all I had been doing was cartooning. All of my influences were from Donald Duck comic books and Mad Magazine. And so I was just tracing and imitating cartoons. It never occurred to me there was any such thing as fine art. I didn't know what that meant.
Your big concern was, I need to get into some kind of college.
Yeah, which I didn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't accepted to anywhere where we applied. My mother drove me all over Indiana, all over the state of Ohio to her college where she had gone to school. And so finally, as a last resort, I took it upon myself without her guidance. And I applied to an art school that was in downtown Columbus, Ohio. And I had a bit of a portfolio because I've been taking these art classes in high school. And they accepted me. So I remember when I came home that afternoon, my mother was there. I guess she was teaching. And I said, wow, there must be something wrong with that art school. It can't be too good. They accepted me.
Mm-hmm. And what did she say?
Well, she thought that was an upside down, backward kind of attitude. But anyway,
was she okay with it?
Oh yeah, she actually my mother was very good about backing whatever direction either my brother and I took at all. She was very good about that.
And your brother, was he younger or older?
He was 3 years younger. But for example, I mean, I stayed at the Columbus College of Art and Design for 2 years, and I transferred the credits to Kansas City Art Institute, which was, maybe still is, among the top half dozen art schools in the country. And that was really her influence. If you're going to, whatever your endeavors were, get to the best place for that kind of education you can. My brother and I were both interested in archaeology, paleontology as little kids, but my brother stayed more serious with it. So he originally was going to be a paleontologist, so the University of Wyoming, that was the school.
They have so much dinosaurs there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he eventually changed his major, but that's why he went to the university.
And what did he end up doing?
He ended up in education, the same as my mom.
Yeah.
And then he eventually got a PhD, and is a neuroscientist. And,
oh, wow.
And he writes books and lectures.
Well, you write books and you lecture.
That's true. I do. We do.
And other things too, which we'll talk about, like winning belt buckles for championships and rodeo. But we're not there yet. So you go to the first school, and then a couple years later you transfer to the Kansas City Art Institute.
Right.
Jeff Ailing went there too as well. I don't know if you knew that. Yep.
Jeff
Ailing, he's one of our artists in here.
Oh.
He's the show right now that's up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he did. He was.
What years was he there?
Oh
do you
God,
know?
it would have been way after you.
Yeah.
It would have been in like 82 or something like that.
Susan Klotz Riley, who was an abstract kind of artist in Phoenix, was also at Kansas City Art Institute. I think just a year before me or a year after. You know.
So you're in school. What years did you start? Were you at Kansas City Art Institute?
Well, Kansas City from the fall of 1967 until the winter semester of 1969.
Okay. And then you graduate from there?
Yeah.
And then what about Vietnam? Because it's going blasting on right at that point.
That's true. Well, a couple things happened. One, 1965, I was the first class to get drafted. The spring of '65, and a lot of the kids I grew up with volunteered. Some were drafted. I already had a sixth instinct about this is not the right time or place for me with this war. I didn't believe in it, but I didn't have any real focused ideas about that notion. It was just an instinct, and plus, I was animate about really getting started with this voyage of becoming an artist, and I didn't know what that meant. But I also knew my own history. I didn't get along with authority figures. I didn't get along with rules. I thought, boy, the Army, wow, this is going to be a tough one. But you could get a student deferment,
yes.
you know. Right. So as long as I stayed in school, I was safe for those 4 years.
Yeah.
Although we did do kamikaze stuff. There was 4 of us there was a group of people one semester after another that were transferring from Columbus College of Art and Design and going out to Kansas City. So we already had peers and friends that had preceded us. And my closest mentor then at Columbus College of Art and Design was Stanley Whitney, and he was a year ahead of me. And so when he decided to go to Kansas City, I stayed my second year in Columbus and then followed him out there. So we all had interviews with the dean. We were all in the painting department, or wanted to be in the painting department. And like real idiots, we smoked a bunch of dope and dropped acid an hour before we went into the interviews. So it was
be a good thing, just depends.
It was a major challenge. And plus, our life's on the line. If we don't get accepted to school and we're out of school,
you're going to Vietnam.
We're going to Vietnam, exactly.
Do you know why you did it? Was it like a dare kind of thing?
I wanted the stakes higher.
You wanted the stakes higher. You got it higher.
Yeah, I did.
And how did the interview go?
We got in
swimmingly.
Yes, I guess. I have no idea. I just by the end of the interview, I mean, I was just trying to contain myself from not hallucinating. Just.
Did you have long hair and all that? Were you that
not really
60?
long hair. I mean, I had longish, but not long, like down on my shoulders.
So was this like 67?
Yeah.
67.
Exactly.
So you get in, you go, you do your 2 years, you get your degree, but Vietnam's still going on.
That's
you're
true.
Still
You're
drafted.
Right. Absolutely right. So what had happened between my first semester, senior year, and my last semester, I had for really what was all what you would call now a nervous breakdown. So I was in a mental institution in May and part of June, and I was labeled as a paranoid schizophrenic with homicidal tendencies. So when I graduated, and they always gave you a form every year, is there a reason why you think you shouldn't be drafted? So I would just give them my medical report, just copies of it.
Right.
Never heard from them again.
Yeah.
Not a word. So I was in New York. I was 21. We moved to New York.
What an odd thing to give you as a description, because you're clearly not that in any form or fashion. I can't imagine.
Well, I haven't killed anybody yet.
You seem to always kind of be you're on an even. You're always at a high even keel, but you're always on an even keel.
I'm more grounded
for 30 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely more grounded than. But it was a great description.
Yeah.
And as I go through the decades and build legacy as an artist. That doesn't hurt.
No, your Van Gogh moment.
You're right.
So you're 69, you escape the draft.
Right.
And then you go directly to New York?
Yep. We were in New York. I was married to my high school sweetheart. And I just literally right after Christmas, January 1st or 2nd, we drove to New York.
And what were your goals? What did you think would happen? You got this degree. You probably clearly have shown aptitude for art and doing what you're doing. You're doing painting at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
and what kind of painting?
Well,
is it figurative or?
It was from Kansas City on. It was always figurative, and it was very, very influenced by Francis Bacon. So I was doing triptychs of suited cedar business figures, and we were trying to emulate whatever lifestyle that we imagined.
An artist should be, or Francis
Bacon.
Well, that's a
so we, so my little posse and I were always, way into the dark side, and I think that's really what led to a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
It's just, I kind of got my red badge of courage. I passed the insanity test.
Yeah.
Now I'm on the other side, and now I'm no longer even interested in, doing post Francis Bacon style paintings. I'm not even interested in that lifestyle. I've, tasted madness just enough to know, I need to pull back.
Yeah.
So,
because you feel it in his paintings. His paintings.
Oh God, yeah.
Those faces are something. And were you trying to emulate that same kind of thing?
I was interested, in the emotional content.
Yeah. Okay.
I was the painters that I gravitated towards art historically. People like Van Gogh, Goya, Chaim Satine, Egon Schiele, and there was, others, but, always with a huge emotional
impact.
Exactly. Yeah. But then I had to back off, like I said. So when I got to New York, I'm going to wind that back. The very first person that I had encountered as an artist was Andy Warhol, and I had worked briefly for Warhol in the spring of 1966 when he was sponsoring the Velvet Underground. So.
And where was that?
In New York.
Oh, so in '66.
I was in New York briefly.
So you were in art school, but you went ahead and went to New York to.
And I was broke. I didn't have any way to get back to school. And fortunately, I ran into somebody I knew and said, "That's not a problem. I can get you a job with Warhol." I said, "You got to be out of your mind." He said, "Nope. Let's." And I had a car.
Yeah.
So we drove over to the Lower East Side to the Dom, which was the Polish American embassy, and Andy had rented that for a month, and he just put the velvets in there. So I just became, a gopher for those guys, and just, helping anywhere I could. 18 years old, and like, whew,
yeah,
these people are way over my head.
Yeah, well, you're 18 and it's 66.
Yeah,
60, yeah. So he's really hitting his stride now.
Yeah,
pretty big time.
Right.
And what was he like?
Well, Andy with me, I mean, there was just absolutely no dialogue because he didn't know me. He was really honestly shy around people that he didn't know. I mean, I only knew that he was a talkaholic, after the fact, but that was with people that he was close to. But he would just come by, every afternoon and kind of, okay, here's what we're doing this evening, and the light show was behind the Velvets and all that, and he introduced me to the guy who was helping him with this, Rudy Stern, and Rudy is the one that kind of took me under his arm for a while I was there. I had no place to stay. The Velvets let me crash at their place, so I had a place to sleep. And Rudy would introduce me to, some of the, stars that showed up.
Right.
I didn't know who any of them were.
Did you remember? You probably didn't know who they were, so it wasn't as impactful.
Yeah, the only thing that registered with me was I knew Allen Ginsberg's work, and his partner was, I think, also a poet, Peter Orlovsky, and I remember meeting Peter, who was quite a gentleman. And now, like you say, there was others, but
other artists come by?
I don't know.
It was more writers, actors, celebrities.
It was just whatever the pop underground scene was. In fact, I think what Andy represented was at the antithesis of mainstream pop. I mean, he was kind of shunned, by Lichtenstein and the whole crew really that was showing with Leo Castelli.
Yeah, well,
and he was even buying their work.
Yeah,
I mean, he was a compulsive collector early
time.
On of his peers, and they still just kept him at arm's length
because they thought he was more an illustrator, and
they thought he was too fey.
Yeah, okay.
Even though a lot of the people who were practicing pop artists were gay, he was even out there beyond
where they were
exactly. They weren't comfortable with his style.
So you do that in '66. You go back, you get your degree. Right. So you have this now in your background, in your head, and what you've experienced and seen, right? And then you go back out to New York.
Well, there's other things, that were mentoring to me. Again, I'll come back to my roommate in Kansas City while he was there, this Stanley Whitney. He got into a summer scholarship program at Yale, and so he studied with Philip Guston for that particular summer.
Nice.
And then my other roommate was a guy named Don Christensen. His older brother had gone to graduate school at Indiana University and gone on to become one of the first color field painters, Dan Christensen. And he was showing with Andre Emmerich. And so those were that. So we looked to Dan as like, wow, here's a kid that came from North Platte, Nebraska. He'd gone to Kansas City. And he was valedictorian. And then he'd gone to, graduate school in Indiana, and then he took his career on to New York, and he met, I think it was David Whitney, who was a prominent gallery owner in a pickup football game. And David Whitney picked him up, and then he ended up with, he was made.
Right.
And I remember specifically Don, his younger brother, telling me that, Dan was making fistfuls of dollars and hanging out at St. Adrian's and Cedar Bar, all the famous art bars. And he bought a brand new black Cadillac convertible, and he drives it back out to North Platte, Nebraska to see his folks, and jumps out of the car and says, "Hi, Mom, I made it." And I used that for a title from one of my serigraphs, with Ann Crow and the Rolls Royce, and the license plate says Hollywood, and I titled it "Hi Mom, I Made It." That was my tribute to Dan Christensen. Oh my so that was such a great. So he crashed the Cadillac on Long Island, within months after that.
Well, he's young.
But yes. So my goals were, I really thought about going to graduate school because Stanley had gone to Yale, and then he'd gone back and been accepted again on a full scholarship to graduate school there. And I knew there was no chance for me because I had never gotten an A in my major, painting.
Yeah.
So I just skipped that and just went to New York instead.
You couldn't go to Yale and get in with Gustav.
No, and then everybody, including my wife, she ended up going to Yale and getting her graduate degree. And then I met all these artists, Chuck Close, Richard Serra. You go right down a who's who of, the great artists from the last quarter of the century, and they're all from Yale.
You regret not trying that?
I don't regret not trying it because I knew I couldn't do it. I mean, I wouldn't have that door open to me.
Yeah.
I resent the fact that I couldn't get into Yale. But I did have one kind of FU moment was my second solo show in New York. I was 24 when I had my first show. Next show I was 25. And Ed Pillsbury was head of the art history department at Yale. Mm-hmm. He comes in and buys one of my paintings. And I don't know if it was for his personal collection or whether it went to Yale University or not. I would have just been graduating from Yale with a graduate degree right now, this spring, when he bought that painting. So I didn't get to be a student, but I got a painting in the collection. I think that'll work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's solidified in your mind. You were good enough.
Yes, right.
And so how long did you stay in New York doing your thing? And who was your first gallery by UA? You said your first show was at 24, which is really young.
It was. I did a loft show at the two friends of mine across the street, and that was in 1971. I was 23, and I just had started making Western paintings.
That's when it began, right then?
Yeah.
When you started doing kind of this
yeah.
pop sensibility. Did you consider it to be pop art, pop sensibility at that time?
Well, I knew that when I had made a decision to make Western art, I was going to do it in the only way that was authentic for me, and that was to be based on black and white movie stills. Even though I had a stepfather, who was a TV cowboy, but again, that's kind of consistent with Hollywood cowboy. And I'd grown up, those formative years in Lander, Wyoming. I'd been to a bunch of rodeos. I didn't really hang out with any of the ranchers or cowboy kids then, although we had horses and cattle growing up. I just didn't consider myself a cowboy.
Yeah.
And at that time, late 60s, 1970, I'm thinking, this is redneck, right-wing. I don't want to know these people. But I knew that if I started making these paintings based on black and white movie stills, that I was going to alter the direction of whatever contemporary Western art could be.
Yeah, because nobody's doing that, right?
Nothing
like that.
No.
I mean, that's 71.
And I knew by then there was, because I started paying attention historically to other Western painters, as well as the films. Now I started to become a real student of Western films, which I hadn't really been
and we're
before
talking
that.
30s, 40s kind of films?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 30s, 40s, 50s. And, what was my point?
So this was the direction you felt you were going to take.
Yeah, and I knew as an alternative, there was the CAA. I had now become familiar that there had been a group of more traditional, Western approach painters who had formalized themselves as a group in 1965. And by 1971, I was still subscribing to Arizona Highways. And I think it was around 71 or 72. Boom, I see Fritz Scholder.
I was about to ask that because he does his Indian series starting right about 1970.
Yeah, well, actually, he's before me, but not in New York. He's showing in New Mexico in 1967,
right.
And then with Elaine Horwitz. Yeah. And so his first exposure really was through Arizona Highways as far as New York went, because that's where I showed, and that's the only group of artists that I knew. But that caught my attention, because I could see the Francis Bacon influence.
Yeah. Big time.
Wow, here's another contemporary guy.
Yeah, in a native sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I really liked what he was doing. And then also, to get back to your question, who started me, of that first show I did in my loft before I had a gallery, Ivan Karp, who owned O.K. Harris, bought a painting of mine. And he was really interested in my work, but he wouldn't show it because they had another artist, John Clem Clark, who had also by that time become a mentor to me, and for me justified my projecting images, tracing them, and doing this flat, paint by number system, if you will, which I still to this day do. And John was doing a variation of the same theme, and Ivan thought that we were too close in philosophically or
everything.
So he pushed me to Warren Benedict Gallery, which was one of his collectors who decided to get in the business for himself. Now, simultaneously to that, I was going to all the shows that Ivan had, and I saw a show of Luis Jimenez, and then another show of Luis Jimenez. So now I knew
there's something
I
else
had
out
peers.
There. Yeah.
And
was he doing painting at that point or sculpture?
No, he was doing sculpture.
Yeah.
He was, I mean, it wasn't, exactly yet what he would be.
That had to be an eye-opener because they have very much that pop sensibility.
Absolutely. So we, by default, became the grandfathers of pop Western.
Yeah.
Although we weren't formal, we didn't actually hang out or think, or formalize that notion. We just, on our own individual paths, kind of started.
And did you meet and talk to these guys later on?
Oh, yeah. I became really good friends. I won't say really good friends. I got to know Luis. I thought he was an angel of a guy.
Everybody says that.
Oh, God, what a
loss.
Well, yes. And, I mean, I couldn't even get close to trying to be the gentleman that he was.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just fall on the floor and give up. Say, God, Luis, you're a better human being than I. Fritz was a whole different story.
Yeah.
I mean, we ended up trading paintings, and unbeknownst to Fritz, I was also buying and selling his work. I would never have told him that I was, selling his stuff in the secondary market. He would have gone through the roof. He was, impossible.
But a fantastic painter.
Yeah.
And you guys showed at Elaine Horwitz.
Yeah, we did.
Together, right?
Yeah, and we did one museum show together in Midland, Texas. And that was a big deal for me, and the fact that he would even consider trading art, because he kept all the artists in the Southwest at arm's length. He would only hang out with Andy Warhol or somebody in New York, anybody that, was of a higher stature than himself. He wouldn't be caught dead at any party, he wouldn't show group shows with anybody out here in the Southwest.
Yeah, I think Warhol actually did a...
He did a double portrait.
Yeah, double portrait.
But Fritz commissioned it.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it.
That's how it happened.
I get it. Well, good marketing on his part.
Yes.
And if Warhol was willing to do it, I guess...
Oh, yeah.
You ever regret you didn't get Warhol to do one of you?
Well, what I regret was the fact that I bought Warhols and I sold them. I didn't keep them. That was dumb.
Yeah, well, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing now.
Right.
Yeah, Scholder would come to the gallery here. He liked Dixon. So that makes sense, too, that he might have seen a thread from what you do and what Dixon did. He really liked.
Well, he at least had some appreciation for the fact that I was a contemporary Western peer.
Yeah.
And the fact that we did a joint museum show together, that spoke volumes to me. He didn't give me any negative grief, not ever. And I didn't try to get into his space too much. I just, whatever kind of dialogue we had was fine, and I didn't push it.
Yeah.
Beyond
it's completely different what you guys did. I mean.
Well, just the way he lived and the way who he wanted to be around and all that was completely
And the people
different.
that he, Wayne Thiebaud was his kind of mentor, and Gerry Condis, and those guys are
and Nathan Oliveira.
Yeah, Nathan Oliveira, who's one of my favorite painters.
Right.
Yeah, and you see that.
Yep.
But yours has a different sensibility, completely different sensibility.
Than Fritz, yeah.
Yes, than Fritz.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you do your first show at 24, you do another one at 25.
Yep. And then I did a show in Brussels, Belgium, and because of my fear of traveling on my own, I didn't go to the opening. I was the first American artist not to go to this gallery. I ended up selling all but a couple of the pieces. But and I also was being represented in Paris. I had a gallery in Milan. And I didn't take advantage of any of this stuff. And eventually my career just collapsed in Europe, as it should. I wasn't there to promote it. I wasn't there to help it.
And so, looking back as an older artist who just came back from England last week doing a show for art galleries, if you had it over to do, I take it you would have gone to those shows and put in the FaceTime and
I probably would have. But on the other hand, now that I have a partner, in Rebecca, who really takes all the fear out of me traveling and, makes all the arrangements. I'm glad that, in a way, that it's happening now. I like the idea that my career is on the ascent in my 70s, as opposed to like a rock star,
right?
Who's already had a great career, and you're done at 35.
Yeah, unless you're Mick.
Yeah, exactly. But
Or
there's
Paul.
there's not too many of us that are those guys.
Yeah. But you've had that career that whole time. You've painted the entire time.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a time.
I've had ups and downs, but yes, I've had an career. Yeah, we're almost at 49 years.
Yeah, for sure. So when you get back, well, you don't go to Europe, but you do all these European shows, and they're successful.
For a while they were, and then
so what happened? At what time frame did you go? Okay, I need to do something different.
Well, those doors got shut
because
for
they
me.
Just said.
And then
And did they shut them because they weren't selling, or because?
Yeah, eventually they just weren't.
Not enough to make it worthwhile.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then I couldn't show in New York anymore for the same reason. I mean, it was kind of like flip the page. Who's new? Flip the page.
You got it.
And I, my work wasn't mature yet. I mean, I was still up and down, and I.
You're like not hardly 30, right?
Yeah, no, I'm not 30 yet.
Yeah.
And I'm already washed out of New York.
But you did make a lot of money at that time.
I did. Yeah, and I spent it well. I bought property inside Teton National Park, built a log cabin there. So I came out full time to Arizona and Wyoming right after I turned 27, I think, 28. And then I met Elaine Horwitz. So I got another jump start, the second resurrection of Schenk's career.
And what
Elaine.
year would have that been that you met Elaine
70.
And started showing?
Well, I came out west in 75 permanently, and I think I met her in spring of 76.
That was a great time to be in that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I could see there was, now, I mean, Luis was all over the place. Fritz was the giant Native American. Yeah, he was killing it. So Elaine was hesitant about my work at first, but she had an opening that Paul Jenkins, for whatever reason, couldn't make a date that he was supposed to, and it was an April 15th to May 15th, which is completely in that era shoulder season. I mean, it's everybody's gone home.
Right, it's hot.
So I jump on it. I take it. And I don't know how many paintings I had, 17, 18, something like that. She sells almost the whole show before June. Whoa, now I've got her attention.
Right. And this is in her Scottsdale location.
Yep.
Okay.
So I was off and running again.
And is that when you met Julie Saucy?
Well, she came on in 1980.
Okay, so she hadn't come onto the
So I've only known her for 38 years.
Yeah, okay. Julie Saucy is the director in contemporary art at Tucson Museum of Art, and is incredibly gifted. And we have a podcast. Go back and find it. And we talk about Billy Schenck on that podcast too. So shout out to Julie Saucy.
Right.
So you start there in 75 with her.
Yeah.
You're living in Phoenix. And
well, actually 76. I mean, I came in the fall of 75, and I did a show at a small gallery that no longer exists. I was invited to a group show, and that's where I met Ed Mell.
What was that gallery?
Limner Gallery.
Yeah, I've heard of it, yeah.
And
keeps coming up.
And there was Davis, Lou Davis?
Yeah, he could have been from Texas.
No, he from here in Tucson. Different David. I don't know. But Ed was just coming back from New York with an illustration career and starting his, Western painting career. So we traded paintings. And
so that was 75. You were shown in Limner with Ed.
And then I jumped over to Elaine Horwich. And Ed went to Suzanne Brown.
Yeah, they were together. Suzanne and
oh yes, they were, but they weren't by 75.
Yeah, no, they had broken up, and apparently not in a happy fashion.
Right.
They were big time competitors at this point.
Yeah.
And so, how long were you at Lou Ellen's?
No, it was Elaine.
I mean, Elaine Horwitz.
Well, she and I had a running battle over percentages, and I was her only 60-40 artist, and that was always galling to her. And so I was with her from 75 to 92, but I left the gallery 4 times, came back 5.
And was it always over money?
Yeah.
And was it her pushing you or you pushing her?
Or
both? Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes was one spring. It was, May. It's already hot, and she was in the new location up on Marshall Way, and the gallery's deader than a doornail. And Elaine loved to, start something if she had a captive audience. So she's got 3 of the gals that work for her there, and they're just literally sitting there doing nothing. And I come in with this friend of mine who I'm, buying prehistoric pots with, and we're going to go up the highway to New River to look at a small collection. And so we walk in, and I can remember the sun was late in the sky. It had to be, close to 5 o'clock. And Elaine starts in with, so what are we going to do about this, 50-50 it's got to be. And I grab the desk, and then I go into an epileptic seizure and fall down on the floor and just writhe around and stagger back up. And I turn around and walk right back out the door. Never said a word. She never brought it up again.
That was the last time. That said it all.
Yeah, it was fun. I had the gals in hysteria. Even Elaine was speechless. She'd never seen me throw an epileptic seizure before, but I used to practice that with a cousin of mine when I was in high school. He taught me how to do that.
Just for those moments when you need it, right?
Well, yeah, I used to be able to get out of Spanish class because I'd have a seizure every once in a while. In the mornings, my crew would take me out. We'd run around the halls and try to break loose and go play, whatever.
So why did you leave in '92 with her?
No, I didn't leave. She died.
Oh, that's when she. God, is it really?
I think it was '92.
No, it was later than that. I think. Was it?
I don't remember.
We need Julie here.
With you. Yeah,
but something traumatic happened in the gallery. It was the gallery, not you.
And I actually was with the gallery for a while after that. But the momentum. I knew that the day she died, I said, "Oh my God, an era has ended."
Yeah, well, she was the driving force, no doubt. And were you showing in Santa Fe and
I was showing in all
and
her
Palm
galleries.
Springs? Yeah. Okay, all 3.
Yeah, and she had Sedona. But she was pulling in, things were definitely sliding backwards a little bit by the early 90s for her. It didn't have the impact that the 80s did.
The 80s was
80s was unbelievable.
80s was just, that was a time frame of...
You sold everything.
Yeah.
Just everything. My income from the middle 80s, along with the pottery business, if you do it by inflation, I was making $1.3 million in today's dollars a year.
Yeah.
Then I don't get close to that now. So I was doing pretty well.
You get close.
Yeah, I'm close.
Yeah. You get close. Not in inflation dollars either.
You're right. So
and you're taking all that money and you're buying art too. You had a great art collection.
Yeah,
you do have a great art collection and Molesworth furniture. And how did you get into the Molesworth thing? That's a very interesting.
Well, because I had the log cabin that I was building. From when I bought that property. I bought that property in 1970.
And that's in
Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And we first built a log cabin for my mom and my now next stepfather. And then we had a guest cabin we built, and then a shop. It was a compound. And then we built a studio for me, and then we started my log cabin in I was around 78, 79, moved into 1980. So because I love, indigenous materials, like in the Southwest, it's going to be rock and adobe. Up there, it had to be log and rock, and I wanted indigenous furniture. So I was already collecting, ranch furniture, although it was rougher, cruder stuff. And then I began to hear the name Molesworth. Mm-hmm. And there was literally nobody dealing them. There was no market. And it took me 15 years before I found my first piece of Molesworth furniture to buy.
Because
there was nobody selling it until Terry Winchell showed up in 1990.
Was that because nobody wanted to get rid of it, or that just no one had made a market for it?
Nobody had made a market.
Yeah.
Terry was the first. I'd given up. I'd even driven by that time to Cody, not even knowing where his Molesworth shop was, or the fact that he'd already sold it to one of the guys that were working for him.
What was his years? What was Molesworth's time frame of making furniture?
Well, he 1931 is when he started making distinctive, Molesworth what became with his signature style. But he sold his business in 1960 to Paul and or Don Heinemann, but they were already doing parallel works that were knockoffs of his stuff. He died here in Tucson, I think, in 1977.
Molesworth, you mean?
Yeah.
So that big furniture that I got out of that estate that looked just like Molesworth last week and dumped wasn't his, could have been his. No,
what are you talking about?
No, just kidding. And you get a collector who's like, what?
Right.
And Molesworth furniture will sell at the higher end of what, 250,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, for a piece.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just to give you an example, club chairs, which seem to drive the market more than any other particular type of furniture.
Is that just because they're usable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. When I first came into the market, they were already at like, $4,000 and $5,000 and $5,500. And oh God, that's a lot of money to pay for a piece of furniture.
Mm-hmm. It is.
So, but I jumped in, and I mean, there were plenty of pieces that were less than that. And then I remember, I wanted to get really quintessential club chairs, which would be carved panels on the sides and the burl on the sides. And they started going to 8 to 9,000 and 10 and 12. And I sat on the sidelines, and finally I think it was 17. And I'm still occasionally getting some. But boy, then they went to 26 to 30 on average. And now this year they went at auction in New York at Sotheby's in April. And they were going over 50,000.
So would you buy at that level?
Well, just before the auction, I dumped another 90,000 into Molesworth with Terry a week before the auction, and my net worth, just on the furniture I already owned, went up 520,000 that day. And then another chair, Molesworth club chair, 68,000.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's like, wow, I like this.
Or time to get out.
Or hold. Just not buy.
Yeah, well, you like it. You use it. It's in your house.
Yeah,
it's
we use it. We live on it, yes.
It's packed with Molesworth.
Yeah. I love
and Schenk, too. It's yours, too.
Yeah.
You've made some great
That's true.
furniture.
But I love to tell people we have these, museum groups come visit the house and the studio and all that. And when I take them into the kitchen, I say, it's really great to sit down at this little kitchen table with these Molesworth chairs, open the paper, have a cup of coffee, and know that my net worth went up at least another nickel today, and I did nothing because I'm sitting in a Molesworth chair.
Sitting in a Molesworth chair.
I like that.
And you think a lot of that market is driven by the homes in like Wyoming and Montana, and they want to have
but
those
it's
kind of
also in
things?
Hollywood.
Oh, interesting.
There's definitely some. Bruckenheimer.
Yeah, Jerry.
Jerry Bruckenheimer was. I don't know that he actually owns any or he got replicas, but they were really interested. Alan and Christy Horn.
Yeah, both those individuals have great taste.
I met Christy at a Molesworth auction at Christie's in New York in 1994, and she had done her homework. She had, an assistant with her, and they were doing longhand notes on the condition of every single piece they were interested in. There was 415 pieces. So I hung out with her off and on during the day before the auction. So then the next morning, I get back together with her, and she says, well, Alan gave me a budget of $550,000. Well, that should definitely be able to get you some furniture. And she didn't like the prices as they were going. And we were at the back with, all the chairs in the aisle. And at one point, we were so disappointed that the prices were going so high. I just started raising my paddle to start every single item. Didn't even matter. I didn't even look at the catalog anymore because I knew they were going to go.
You just wanted to bid.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Christy didn't get anything. And I was impressed with the fact that she had the wherewithal, to do anything. And she just thought, I'm not going to be an idiot. I'm not going to just, throw this money out today. Well, and ultimately, of course, it wasn't throwing it out the window.
Yeah.
But I loved her restraint. I respected that.
You do have to do that at whatever level it is at that point in time.
I think so.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, I think any professional or any serious collector sets their limits. It's okay. You can go a little high if you have to.
Right.
But the main thing is trying not to get into the emotional, ego-driven, I got to have it and bid. And I think it's even easier now with the internet, though it may not be something you do, but it's really easy to just go bid. Yeah, and to let it get away from you. Really
Rebecca
quickly.
does. She bids. I mean, this sounds maybe a little decadent, but there was one weekend in I'm not sure, late November, or maybe it was November 10th. There was a painting of mine that came up at a small auction house in New Jersey, and it was a good early rodeo piece. Simultaneously, there's 4 pots that I want to bid on at Leslie Hindman in Denver. Also, I'm driving to Tempe, Arizona to bid on the best collection of memories, black and white pottery, to come on the market. Mm. All of it documented, all of it in a book. And there was a 4th place that we were, then there was Jerry Peters' auction in Santa Fe. This is all the same day. And I thought, this is insane. We don't need to buy anything. But I've got her going to bid at Leslie Hindman on the computer,
right,
as well as bidding on the painting in New Jersey. And I went to physically bid on the memory spools because there was more of them and a lot of them, and I wanted to see the condition.
Right.
So as I was missing on every single piece, I called back to her. I said, "Okay, you got more money.
Right.
I gave her originally a $10,000 limit on the Schenk, and I said, "Go ahead and take it higher."
Yeah.
But by the time I called her back, it had already sold, but it had gone at 14.5 or something like that.
Anyway.
But she did manage to get 2 of the pottery pieces at the Hyman. But that's crazy.
Well, you have an addiction.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons you paint, because to fill your addiction. I mean,
I love art.
It's been very few years in our 30 years you haven't owed me some kind of money for something.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
That's really true.
Yeah, no, it is. I like that.
Yeah, that's what Richard Lampert says.
Yeah, I like that. Well, that's how collectors are. Real collectors.
Right.
That the art, whatever it is, it's not the money. You get the money, and all you care about with the money is to go get more art.
Right.
Because it fulfills you in some way. And there's a certain type of imagery I know that you like. I've seen it in your houses. I've watched you over the years. And, it should have a name, Schenk imagery, because I know when I see it.
Well, specifically, the paintings that I buy, whether they're my peers, or historic painters, I'm specifically interested in those paintings that I think I can learn something from, that I can expand my own painting universe. That's why I buy them. When I get frustrated, with passages in my work, and I think, how can I make this better? And I just go to my books or to my collection.
Yes.
Well, they did this. This is how they resolved that.
Right.
And what the other great beauty of it all is, I can drag that painting off of a wall in my house, and I can put it right there in the studio, right next to me, so I can just absolutely deconstruct it, reconstruct it. And
yeah, you can see how they laid down the paint and what they did and how they composed the thing.
Yeah. And just, I've, like Ed Mell for years, I was obsessed with how in God's name did he get this huge, deep space, aside from the fact that there's these dramatic clouds.
Right.
I remember calling him up one time after I'd come back from Wyoming. I said, where are you finding these clouds? How do you do this? And I raced down to his studio. I said, let me see your slides. And he shows me his slides. And wow, geez, these look just as boring as mine. You're inventing all this stuff. Whoa! This is way cool.
It's true. You use it as reference, and then you go from there.
Yeah.
And John Moyers would be another person you have, and Dennis Saminsky, Logan Hegez.
I'll tell you another guy I want more of is Glenn Dean.
Glenn
is just...
Yeah, I got a killer one out there right now.
I saw it.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's
fantastic. That won like a major award too. I don't know if you knew that, but it won the best of show at the Idlejoy. Yeah, no, it's a fantastic
wow.
movie. Yeah, no, it's an important painting. I'm happy to have it.
Well, he has come such a long way. I mean, I met Glenn at the same time that I met Logan, Hijaj, and we bought 3 landscapes, and I kept bugging Dean, why don't you put figures in these things? Or he had little figures, make them big. But I think I can't take credit for the fact that he started making, bigger, more dramatic, iconic figures. But there was really a time when he had a fear of not being able to do that successfully.
Yeah, I understand that.
And I really appreciated his honesty in saying that. And boy, he got past it.
Oh, he got past it.
In spades.
Yeah. Yeah, he's really gifted.
He's
one of those individuals that I started representing him, I think, when he was like 25 or 24.
Really?
No, maybe 24. Yeah, I saw him really early on and said, oh, my God.
I'll tell you what else I like about him that really speaks to me is the minimalism of his work.
Yep.
I mean, like the painting you have right there right now, it's just one female figure, and here's the horizon line down here in the lower portion of the painting, and the rest is just sky.
It's gradation of sky.
And, that's a really tough way to make a painting when you're throwing out tons of information.
Yeah.
I mean, it's reductive.
Yeah.
It's minimal. And man, is it powerful when it works.
And do you find you do that somewhat?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I get paintings I think, oh, this is so cluttered. I just threw away a painting I started after I came back from, seeing a zillion paintings at the Louvre and all these historic, 15th, 16th, 17th century paintings. And I got this notion about I want to try to get all these foregrounds in the figure in shadow without doing a silhouette, which is what I've done in the past, and make your eye go back to hit direct light and make the drama work that way. I had this thing so cluttered up, I just...
And so what do you do with a painting like that?
Kill it.
But do you just scrape it?
No.
Or you literally just...
No, I tear it off the canvas.
Yeah, you destroy the canvas?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can't have, because everything I do is so flat, I don't want to have
any
a
could
ghost,
see that. Yeah, because it would.
line.
Unless that could be very interesting.
It could, but not for me.
You don't want to go that creative route.
No.
Well, it's interesting. Now I've been representing you for 25 years. I've watched your progress. You're hitting it like on all cylinders. You're painting the best you ever have.
I would agree.
Yeah, why is that? Why do you think that you're...
I think
is it
I
just
do know
you
the
just
answers.
I want to know that.
It's because I went through that really dark period from about 2000 to about 2008. And then when I came back to Western painting, and as I've gotten older, I've started reading the text in art books to know about these people's lives. I'm always looking at art books. I'm always looking at magazines. But after I got out of the business of buying and selling.
Yeah, when I told you to get out of the business and start painting, because you're a great painter.
Well, as I've really been more focused.
You're focused.
I'm way more focused.
Yeah.
And Rebecca is like a buffer for all the distractions. I literally don't even get very many phone calls, or sometimes none at all during the day. Or I have my phone turned off.
Yeah.
And I think with the accumulation of what I've looked at and studied and continue to, and then spending the time that I do in the studio, is showing up.
Yeah.
It's just, it's absolutely...
Yeah. Everything's better. Compositions are more interesting.
Yeah.
Colors are really great. You've hit a different level on your colors for sure.
I have.
There's something there that I've seen it in the last 5 years for sure.
Yeah.
And right now it's just crazy good.
Yeah, and I've set the bar really high for... Now that I understand color better, and I'm going to come back to Logan, who, because of his palette and the way he has this, what I consider enormous restraint, but somehow still, they're just great paintings.
Yeah.
And I've tried to imitate those kinds of palettes on occasion, and I've just learned the way I use color, the way I mix color, I know is entirely different. Here's another barometer that I've been working with Michael Rayburn building serigraphs since 1978. Ed has been with him all those same years. And I was just commissioned to do a set of 4 different serigraphs for the gallery in England. And Michael, after I had, drawn all these, I'd also given him 2 of the original works so he could have them as a color reference. Well, he knew from past experience, I used fewer colors, and when I wanted to change value, all I did was throw in more or less white. And he said, I don't know what you're doing now, but these colors don't translate the way you used to mix colors. You're throwing, and it's true, because I'm using all these other, I'll call sideways colors to go up and down in value, and it isn't as simplistic as what I used to do. And now Michael's going crazy because he's trying to duplicate.
Because he has to match it.
He has to match it.
Well, I think when the books are written, they're going to see these time frames, and they'll see these colors and these developments. Because, I mean, I can just see it anecdotally watching you grow as an artist and what you're doing.
And I think that's a good thing, you know, to see that fantastic. An artist has,
Dixon did it.
Yeah.
He went to the more simple, different colors, flatter, all that stuff. And I think really artists who want to get better do that. You know,
I would
they're
hope
not
so.
just satisfied with making money. They want to create and do something and leave a legacy, which is one of the things I want to talk to you about, because you are, of all the gallery artists I have, by far have the most paintings in museums. Or what are you up to, like 50 paintings?
56.
56 paintings.
It'll be 57 in January. And there's another one now. We're in the middle of negotiating with a museum in Saratov, Russia. I don't know how they found me, but they're in love with what I do.
It makes sense. I can see it on many levels.
Well, all I know is I'm beginning to see that the world is ready for pop Western. It's unreal how much American Western culture has permeated everywhere else.
Sure.
They love it.
Netflix.
Yeah.
You know?
When I was in England at the openings, I had just talked to one of my cowboy buddies that's in some of my paintings, and he'd been out in Nebraska for months, and I didn't know. I knew he was on a movie set. And I said, "Where were you?" And he said, "Well, I was out in Nebraska. We were doing this thing called Buster Scruggs for the Coen Brothers."
It's fantastic.
I said, "Oh, great! I can't wait to see it." So I'm waiting for it to come out, right? Not knowing it was on Netflix. So I go to England. And everybody I talk, oh yeah, we saw that. What? You guys all see this stuff before me? How's that work?
Yeah, really wonderful. Actually, it's 5 vignettes and just no, you definitely have to see it. Shout out to the Coen Brothers, my favorite.
Yeah, I love the work they do.
And so a couple other things I want to talk about. You're doing a show, a museum show. I think it's with the Briscoe. That's Warhol and you.
Yeah, that came down, but it's going to be traveling.
Yeah, tell us about that show. 'Cause I'm interested in that.
Well, you know, this is an interesting thing. For the first 45 years of my career, nobody gave a rat's ass about the fact that I had any connection with Warhol or any of that. And now suddenly it's like it's the lightning rod. It's the barometer. It's and they're writing about it. Oh, well, Schenk knew Warhol. Well, Schenk's first. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so they have, the academics have pulled out that last year of Warhol's work.
Yeah, the 87 series,
86, 87.
The Indian series.
Yeah, Cowboys and Indians, which was the last big serigraph series that he did.
That's right.
And really the only body of Western work that he ever did.
Right. If
you take out the one Elvis painting series that he did in 1962.
Right, with the cowboy shooting and all that.
Yeah. So now everybody's making the connection from, the godfather of pop to the godfather of Western pop and the overlap. So now it's getting a lot of attention.
So is the show that's traveling, is it his 86, 87 Cowboy and Indian series along with yours? Yeah. Those are beautiful. Yeah. I particularly like the Geronimo and the John Wayne and the, they're really...
and there's, going to be a catalog supposedly coming out here.
And so do you paint anything to try to go along with that, or do you just do your thing and it is what it is?
No, because the retrospectives for me, there's hardly any current work in it. And I mean, it's just from early... I don't know, the first painting I think in there is 72.
So they take a whole it's a
real retrospective for me.
Of yours, and then they compare it with
because I have
his last series.
All my first paintings are right from the movie stills. Well, that's where Warhol and I overlap too, because he was doing movie stars.
Like Elvis Presley, that was from one of his movies,
Maryland's,
right?
Or the Maryland, and Jackie Kennedy, and all that stuff.
Right.
So there is that overlap. I mean, Warhol did. Allow me, since he had already done that, to use movie stills. I just happened to pick Western subject matter, and he was just doing, all these mainstream portraits, Hollywood people. But
it's interesting. He picks iconic images, right, of the West, whether it's Geronimo or John Wayne, or, but you don't do that in your pictures, in your images. I've never seen you do anything with a Geronimo or a Chief Joseph.
I did one caption painting, but it really wasn't Geronimo. What it was Wes Studi.
Oh yeah, see, but that's different.
I know.
Wes is alive, and you know him, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah. And I did him, with a pair of sunglasses, and I just have some cryptic, message. I've done the same thing.
Has he seen that?
No.
Wes, it's out there. I don't know if it's available. Hopefully, it's in a museum collection.
It's in Diane Stewart's collection.
Oh yeah, I would actually like to have Wes on. He's an interesting guy.
He is, here's another guy I love watching. Wes has been in the movies for decades.
Yep.
And, he's kind of living in the shadow, more or less, of other people. And I thought the greatest thing that he had brought to the screen was Geronimo in 1993. All these decades later, he's in this film called Hostiles.
Yes.
Oh, my God. He did a seminal, what do you call it? Performance. Yeah.
Well, my connection is Michael Blake was a good friend of mine who wrote Dances with Wolves, and so Wes was in the movie that Michael wrote and got an Oscar for this best screenplay.
Well, the Hostiles is as good as it
it got really good reviews. It's funny I haven't seen it yet. There's so much content out there now.
And the other guy is Christian Bale, and I love Christian Bale. For me, is starting to rise above everybody else.
Yeah,
that man does great work, regardless of where he's going.
Yeah.
And now he's going to be Dick Cheney, and he's not even recognizable, but he looks like Dick Cheney.
A younger Dick Cheney.
His face all blown up. He must, Bunny said, God, it looks like he gained 40 pounds. I said, no, how about 100? I don't know. It looks horrible what he did to himself.
That's what he got to do. He wants that Oscar.
But there's two great people. And this British actress, I can't think of her name, Pike, Rosamund. She was in Gone Girl. She was in the Hostiles.
Oh, yeah.
She was good. Everybody, the entire casting for Hostiles was, everything about that film was good.
One other thing I want to talk to you about, and I knew we'd get there, is your championships, your 19th championship belt, right?
No, 16th.
16th, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, you get to 19th.
Well, I've gotten 4 saddles and 16 buckles.
So you're a world-class rodeo guy in what you do. How did you get into that and when?
Having shunned this whole cowboy life as I was growing up, kind of in the middle of it, and then Sergio Leone, through his, spaghetti westerns, bringing me back around to it, to where I confront it with my paintings.
Yeah, and you did some cool paintings from those.
Yeah,
movies.
as well as others. But then I immediately go back to what I consider home by property in Wyoming, my first property in the world, and I slowly get sucked into the lifestyle because of my paintings.
Because you're painting the spaghetti westerns, the Clint Eastwood, and the...
Well, then, see, the last series I did before I left New York was the Rodeo series called Silent Violence. And that was the beginning of me using my own slides and going to rodeos. And in that era, it was easy to just walk into the arena and just stand in front of a chute, and here comes a saddle bronc rider flying right out over your head. You can't even do that now because of insurance, reasons.
And so this rodeo series, was that 84?
No. This is 74, 75.
So really early, So 13 years before Warhol did any of his cowboy and Indian stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so really early.
So then, because we have a local rodeo in Jackson Hole every Saturday night, I started going down there. And, I started hanging around with some of the, specifically one guy, Richard Long, who was a manager of a big ranch in Teton National Park.
You've painted him.
Yeah, a whole lot of times. Yeah. I would go with him when he went to different ranches to go shoeing, and then when they had cattle drives. And then I told him, I said, God, I think I want to try to get down on a bareback bronc or saddle bronc. So he hooked me up with somebody there. So it was around 75, and I sign in, terrify it out of my head.
I'm sure.
And get down on a bareback bronc. I make about $1.50. Poof, I'm blown out of there, and there's Dick standing outside, sitting on his horse with his, arms across the saddle. He says, "Good thing I didn't blink my eyes. I would have missed the whole thing." But I stayed with it, and I just.
And so, was that what you really first started doing? Was riding
bareback broncs? Yeah, and occasionally a saddle bronc. Yeah, and it was terrible. I mean, I was just god awful. Oh yeah, I got all smashed up.
Yeah, and, super hard on your back and your neck and all that stuff. And so, how long did you do it?
3.5 years.
Yeah. Oh wow.
And then I was so addicted to that lifestyle.
Adrenaline rush.
Oh God. And I mean, just the whole thing. I was envious of, in a way, of these young kids. They were just coming out of high school and all that, and they get down on a few saddle broncs and all that, and they start making a little bit of money. And, 2 or 3 of them just say, "Okay, let's pull up and we're going to go down the road. Let's get a PRCA card and we're going pro." And I thought, wow, this is so wildly romantic.
Yeah.
This is like the movies. I can't do that. I already have an international painting career. Yeah. I can't just go, I'm giving up, give up my painting career. I'm going to go
and you
rodeo
have a
and make
house and a wife probably and all that stuff too.
So, and I was no good at it.
Yeah, you were good, but not great.
No. I was no
really
good at
no good at
good,
okay.
really no good.
Yeah, okay.
And then they started doing this on Wednesdays and Fridays and Saturdays. So this became my social life. Even after I quit bronc riding, I knew I didn't want to rope. And by then I had my own horse, and I was helping, gather cattle or whatever whenever the occasion arose. But I was not addicted to roping, and so I would just go down and help with the shows. Help pull up shin straps and all that, run scores for the judges. So I was always in the arena and just being a part of it. And that was my social life. I didn't hang around with the other painters. I didn't hang around with my collectors. I just hung around with the rodeo guys.
The cowboys.
Yeah.
Real cowboys.
Yep. So it killed me that, and eventually I sold my horse, and I didn't have any real connection for quite a while. And then in '93, I had another tragic event, and the only solace was to get on a horse. And I thought, oh my God, this is keeping my sanity. So I got horses, and then it was around, I think, 95 or 96. Some rancher friends of mine up at my end of the valley in Jackson had just heard of this new sport called team penning. So they invited everybody in the county that had horses that might be interested. And so this was fun for me. And I was married, and we had 3 horses. And we go over there, and along with all these other folks, and everybody's got their box lunches, and there's kids running all over the place, dogs running wild, and kids running around on their horses. And they explain what team penning is to us. And I had... Philip Garraway was with me at the house, so he came over that day, and I ran into Kathy Wiffler, who is also a plein air painter in Jackson Hole, who's had a career all this time. And she said, okay, the people who are running the show, they had the cattle numbered. So now let's just do a jackpot. You guys make up teams, and we'll put in $25 a piece or whatever it was. So I made an all-art team. I had Philip Garraway, the art dealer, me, the artist, along with Kathy Wiffler. We came in second. I thought, man, I'm back in the saddle. Man, I'm back in rodeo. And I was completely addicted from that point on.
And then it got into more organized competition, right?
Yeah.
And so now they have actual
there's a national organization.
Right, and it goes through, there's a whole year-long kind of points. You get points. And the guy or girl at the end of the points.
Well, there's different things. Yeah, different organizations.
And it's a male and they're separated, right?
No.
Does Bunny compete against you?
Yeah. In fact,
she beat you one year, didn't you?
Yes.
I just remembered that.
That's true.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
That was, that is actually pretty funny because at the time, they started having this masters division, which was over 50, and my partner lived 2 doors over, who I taught the game to, and he is really, really good. So we decided in January 2009, we're going to campaign, for a world championship. And I thought, wow, I've never thought that big before. I mean, I've already been winning some buckles, and I've won all of the Western Texas and Oklahoma Panhandle novice saddle, and I mean, I was way out in front of everybody. So I'd already had a taste, or good taste. And I'd gone to other shows and, knocked down best money against big-time open legends, open writers at the top of the line. So we started campaigning all over we're in Wyoming, Colorado, Texas, Oklahoma, Arizona, New Mexico, southern Utah, on any given weekend. And I'm just, that division alone, they were doing as like a NASCAR point system. So high points got you qualified to get into the finals in that division. So we came out of New Mexico, qualified number 1 and number 2. And along the way, we'd picked up this gal who was from Colorado. And every time we ran into her, she worked it was the Ranch Sorting National Championship Series, and they're represented in almost every state in the country. So she was working those shows, but she could also ride. So she was scorekeeping and all that. But when we showed up, we'd always get a ride with her. And by the time we got to the finals, I'd probably ridden with her 25 times, and we'd never DQ'd, ever. Holy cow. So I made up my teams. You could have as many as 5. And there was about 215 teams that were qualified in the Masters division. So they're going to bring back the top 50 for the second go, and then it comes to the top 10. And we got 6 cows in the first go, which in some circumstances would not be enough to get you qualified to come back to the second go. But these people were like lemmings flying over a cliff. I couldn't understand. They're just DQing left and right. And I had 2 teams come back to the Jasper and I, and Laura, this gal and she was ranked number 2 from Colorado, as Jasper was ranked number 2 from New Mexico, and I was ranked number 1. So as we rode, I knew that if I continued winning with either Jasper or Laura,
you're going to win.
I'm going to win the national championship,
right.
Not them,
because
I got the points. So, so I had no fear we were going to make it to the top 50, right. And that at least was something. So I lost Jasper in that second round, but Laura and I got 9 cows, and I said, "This is terrific." So sure enough, we're in the top 10.
Yeah.
And I thought, God, I've at least done this. And the top 10 the lowest was 13 cows, and the highest was 21, and we were at 15, right in the middle of the pack. And then, as luck would have it, it's a random draw. We drew last to ride. So I knew exactly
what you had to do.
What I had to do. It was perfect.
Yeah.
So and I'm up against, these guys I write books about. Bill Outlaw is his real name, and other people from Arkansas and East Texas, and one of the Leshes, which they're huge. And right. I was up against the father and the grandfather. Big names. And so we come in last, and all we need is 7 cows, because the top now is 21 to beat.
Right.
So we go ripping in there, and we just start pulling cows left, right. I lost count, but I knew I was going up in the ranking, even if we didn't win, if we don't DQ.
Right.
But I had no fear because I knew how to play defense really well. And finally, I'm spinning around and ready to charge back in, and Laura comes wheeling out from behind me and blocks me. She says, "Stop! We've already won. We don't need any more cows. We had clock left.
Yeah.
We could have taken all 10 of them." We stopped at 7, sat there, world champion.
She was smart.
Yes, she was.
She knew that you potentially could DQ.
Well, I've seen people do it,
Yeah.
who went right past what they needed to win and just blow themselves right out of the saddle. I just didn't know where we needed to stop.
And so how does that have to do with Bunny beating you in the...
Well, then, this would be 2011, and we're back in New Mexico. And we're still doing division play, and by now I'm winning every Masters in the state, in New Mexico, or anywhere we go. So I'm like the guy for
these
Masters.
are the years I didn't get as many paintings. Okay.
Yeah.
You're out cowboying.
I was out cowboying. Nice. Winning $300 and $400 instead of making $3,000 or $4,000. $300 or $400 was more important. So the Masters division is always run as the last division in the day, which is great because the cows are kind of tired. So that means you can rip them for, a perfect cow count is 10. And so I could get in there, and have teams and just, again, racking up points, and get 8, 9, and 10 runs all the time, especially with Jasper. And I didn't pay any attention to the fact that, I'm riding with Bunny as well. So she and I are sharing the same points when we ride. But she's also qualifying all these other teams, and the whole season long, she's really right behind me. In the whole state.
She never really says much about that.
No, she didn't. She wasn't paying attention. So here we are at the finals, and I've got my 5 teams, to go in the Masters. I DQ all of them except my team with Jasper. I got a 10 run with Jasper, and Bunny has got 3 teams qualified to come back to the short go. And so I come back and I get another perfect 10 with Jasper. So I know I've got the day money. But if she keeps qualifying those 3 teams, she's going to add up enough points.
Oh, yeah.
She's going to outpoint me.
Yeah.
She didn't even know it. I knew that she beat me on the third. I said, God, she just stole the Masters division for the whole year. She just took it. And then all these other guys and girls, are you mad? Is she? Are you? I said, are you fucking kidding me, man? It's in the family. If I don't win, she wins. You have to beat us. So there were 7 buckles that were given that year. We took home 5 of them because she won one of the other divisions and the Masters, and I won.
And so do you wear one every time when you go out? You have one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So next time you see Billy Schenck at an opening,
you'll see one of them.
Go look down at his buckles and he'll tell you.
Right.
And if Bunny's there, she'll have hers on too.
Yes. And this last one was big for me because I've had all kinds of medical issues,
right.
And that really leaves me compromised, and I can't get in a saddle by myself anymore. Without help, and yet I can still go out there.
Yeah, once you're on, you're
clock them. Yep. And I'd love to, make sure they see how much I struggle getting in the saddle. And sometimes I drive in, to the rodeo with a blue and white handicaps.
Yeah. And do you limp just a little harder? So they can play it up?
Yeah. And say, here, look at this wad of pills I got to take for pain. I really don't. But.
Yeah, they should be looking at the horse and not you, probably.
Well, I got a crippled horse now, too. Yeah. My great champion horse died a year ago, so this was another big reason why I bought a horse from one of my competitors that they didn't use much. And this horse has a club foot, and she's also got medical issues that we have to watch all the time because she can limp. Yeah. She's going to be shod differently. We have to give her a different kind of, I don't know what, not medicines, but supplements. I don't know.
So buy a Schenk painting and help pay for a horse, right? So you can paint a horse.
Right. Oh, she's in my painting. She's in the newest painting I just brought.
Is she? Oh, you have to show me where you go out. We'll put it on the homepage for this podcast.
She's prettier than Bunny's horse.
Yeah. All right, Billy Schenck. I think we've covered the gamut for phase 1. Phase 2 will be, who knows, next year.
Right.
Thanks for coming on and talking to me. You're a delight.
Well,
really famous,
thanks.
Billy Schenck. Anything you want to say before we close it out?
No, I've run out of words for one day.
Okay, let's go look at art.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, Billy Schenck, Art Dealer Diaries. Thanks.
Man Gallery, located for over 26 years in Tucson, Arizona, specializing in antique Native American art, early Western art, including the famed Maynard Dixon, as well as modern art. You can find everything online at medicinemangallery.com. There's over 6,000 objects to select from. Also, the Charles Bloom Murder Mystery Series, written by yours truly, me, Mark Sublette. There's 6 books in this series, and they follow the protagonist Charles Bloom through all the intrigue of the art world set in Santa Fe and the Navajo Nation. These can be found on Audible, ebooks, Amazon, and of course, the gallery at medicinemangallery.com.